Your average day. Favorite part is waking up. I love starting the day. Least favorite part is the battle between like, do I leave work early so I can spend a little extra time with the family, or do I get my work done and then I get to see my family less? It's like a lose-lose. Have you ever collaborated with Candace on any work? No, I'd like to. I just find that like work plus relationships is never a good idea. So I try to be supportive, but actually like collaborating with her I think might be dangerous. Rufus asks, when did you stop smoking? You know, I was never a huge smoker. I smoked for like a couple years when I was like 20 to 23. Running through an airport as fast as I could to catch my plane and like having trouble breathing, and that's when I was like, smoking is for idiots, I'm done, and I quit then and there and I've never smoked again. Smoking is bad. Gabby asks, how do I realize what I want to do with my life? I literally have no idea and I'm 19. Figuring out like your purpose or your passion or your mission in life is really, really hard to do. I've always said like, you should either be realizing your dreams or figuring out what they are. Figuring out what they are is really hard. The best advice I could give to how to figure it out is to keep very, very busy. And for some people that means going to college. For some people that means getting a job. For other people, it can manifest itself in a million different ways. But sitting around trying to figure it out will never yield results. Danielle asks, what did you think the first time you saw Candace? Candace was such a babe when I met her. And she was so out of my league. So the first thing that I thought when I saw her was like, I will stop at nothing to get this girl to like me. It was a hard fought battle, that one. Michael asks, favorite hobby? Running. Running is the one thing I love to do in my free time more than anything else. Dexter asks, why don't you bike anymore? I live very close to the office. Walking is literally faster than having to lock my bike up. That's all. My mom wants to know your favorite place to travel and where you would go that you've never been. Favorite place to travel, unquestionably, Cape Town, South Africa. That's Candace's hometown. It's where she was born. She's so happy when she's there, and it's also like this incredible place on the other side of the planet. Where would I go that I haven't been yet? I've never been to China. Love to go to China. My like ultimate goal is I'd love to go to space, which feels like it could happen in my lifetime. What would you do if you woke up in the morning and realized that the last 10 years of your life was a dream? I'd get to work. Richard asks, how does Candace feel about you always being at work? Honestly, it's one of the reasons why I love her so much and why our marriage is the success that it is so far, is she's really understanding of my, not just of the fact that I have to work a lot, but the fact that like my work is who I am. And if there's any threat to that, then it would like be a threat to me as an entire person. Work's not something I do. Work is literally the person, is who I am, it's my identity. And she doesn't want to jeopardize that. She's very supportive. Candace is great. Rival asks, do you love us? Us, the subscribers. Love is a strong word. I owe you guys, the people that watch my vlog, and the people that downloaded Beam, and the people that follow me on Twitter, I owe like so much of my career to the fact that you've chosen to give your time to spend it with me and the stuff that I make. I appreciate that on a level that is indescribable. Like without the audience for this vlog and everywhere else, like I wouldn't have a career. So I appreciate that. But I don't really know why like some like social media kids and like vloggers say, I love you, the audience. I love like 6 people on planet Earth. 2 of them are my children. So love is a strong word. If I'm gonna be really honest with you, I wouldn't use the word love. It's a deep appreciation for the fact that you're so generous with your time and that you're so honest with me and that you say nice things in the comments below. It means so much. But love, come on. Connor wants to know, can you imagine living, working somewhere that isn't New York in the future? Totally. Candace and I talk a lot about moving to Los Angeles. I feel like I've mentioned that in this vlog before. Maybe not. Tillman wants to know, what was your first camera and when did you get it? Hold tight, Tillman. This was my first video camera. That's what it looks like. It's broken in every which way. It was like $1,700 and it was so expensive I couldn't pay for it with one credit card. I had to use multiple credit cards, all of which I maxed out to buy this thing. Nina, question from my dad, who's a new fan. Welcome, Nina's dad. What has been your biggest failure? Nina's dad. I made a whole vlog called My Biggest Failure. Here, I'll link it for you right here. Saved me a whole bunch of Lynn asks, what's your opinion on bullying? Lynn, I don't know that people can have an opinion on bullying. People are either unequivocally against bullying or people are wrong. I loathe bullying. I can't stand bullying. Hurt people. As in, if someone is hurt, then they'd make it their mission to hurt other people. And that's who bullies are. When someone bullies me by saying something malicious in the comments or wherever, I just block them from this YouTube channel. I want them out of my life. And I think that's kind of an analogy for life in general. If someone is negative, if someone is a bully, just stay as far away from them as possible. And something that my big brother Van used to say, which is really true and really harsh, their life is their punishment. If someone is really negative, believe me when I say they'll have a horrible life ahead of them. And that horrible life is their punishment for being such a negative, hurtful person. How would you feel if Owen got a girl pregnant? That's a weird question. Elizabeth wants to know, are you a Taylor Swift fan? Of course I'm a Taylor Swift fan. What kind of a monster isn't a Taylor Swift fan? Aiden asks, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? Don't listen to anyone. That's what I'd tell myself. Do you think it's better to plan out your future all the way through or just play it by ear and see what happens? I apologize if I've said this in the vlog before, I can't remember. And this also isn't my original idea. Someone else told this to me, but it's great. It was a great piece of advice that I'm happy to share. I believe in something called the Tarzan method. And what that means is, you are Tarzan, me Tarzan, starting on this side of the jungle, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, they're the other side of the jungle. And there's no straight line through the jungle. You know what, let me do an animation for you here. The Tarzan method. What that means is you're Tarzan, you're here, and you want to get to the other side of the jungle here. Ideally there's this straight line, but what you find in life, what I've found in life, this is non-existent. This straight line here is a unicorn. It doesn't exist. Instead, you reach and you grab onto whatever vine you can grab onto and you swing. And that vine might carry you in this direction, which doesn't feel like the right direction of your goal. But it does get you a little bit closer. And then you grab onto another vine, it swings you all the way over here, a little bit closer. And then you swing in this direction, and then this direction, and 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 eventually you make it to where you want to be. But the beauty of the Tarzan method, the kind of the magic of being open-minded in your pursuit, is that like these unknowns, like where it might take you that you didn't imagine, that's usually where you find something that is actually what your goals are. I don't believe that there is a straight line between where you are and where you want to be in life ever. Not with family, not with romantic interests, and especially not with your career. So an open-mindedness, even if it looks like this, will yield results and outcomes that otherwise would have been unforeseeable. The only thing in life that stands between you and everything you've ever wanted to do is doing it. On today's vlog, Beam, a history lesson. A super short history about how Beam came to be. I love social media. I owe like so much of my career to social media. I use every social media platform out there. But I've always had like my own ideas about what is needed in social media. And about a year and a half ago, sharing those ideas with like a mentor of mine, I was encouraged, he encouraged me. I realized that all that stood between me and everything I've ever wanted to do in life was doing it. And that's when I decided to start Beam. The first thing I did was I needed money. So I went around and asked everybody that I could think of that might give me money for money. And I got a small amount of money. I wanted to start a technology company, but I'm not a technologist. I don't know how to do these things. So I set out on this mission to figure out how. And eventually I met Matt. Matt is my business partner. Matt is a visionary. Matt knows technology. Matt ran engineering at Tumblr from when they were this big until they're the Tumblr you know today. This guy knows how to make things happen. And he's a visionary. He shares the big picture with me. All right, Matt, tell me, why Beam?
It's the first thing since I left Tumblr that felt like it could be that big, that millions of people would actually love and get obsessed with in the same way.
For like 6 months, it was just the two of us trying to figure out what Beam is, how to do this like big, ambitious idea that we had. How do we realize this? And at the end of those 6 months, we built like, it's not an app, it just sort of looks like an app on your phone. And that's when we needed more money. And this is where it got really scary, like really scary. Have you ever asked anybody for money? The last time I asked someone for money was like freshman year in high school, asking my dad for extra lunch money so I could buy a dime after class. Asking for money is scary, and we needed a lot of money. So I leaned on all the influential people I know to set me up with meetings with the kinds of people that can write big fat checks for entrepreneurs like me that want to start a company. They're called venture capitalists. Now I'm going to look up on Wikipedia what a venture capitalist is so I can explain it to you. Is financial capital provided to early stage, high potential growth startup companies. Just getting a meeting with these VCs was tricky. Then you have to sit down in front of them and you have to tell them your idea, and then you ask them for an insane amount of money. It's a little bit like going up to like the best looking person in your entire high school and asking them to prom. And invariably they're gonna say, no, I'm not gonna go to prom with you. Some of them said, why don't you go to prom alone this year, and if you're prom king, I'll go with you next year. But most of them just said no. And when someone says no to you, it rattles your confidence. It really like gets into your head. And we were doing meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And while all of this was taking place, Candace was 9 months pregnant in Houston, Texas. She was like ready to pop. Then on our second trip out there, finally got like some actual like tangible interest. People that wanted to invest or sort of wanted to invest. That morning, 7 a.m., Candace calls me.
Nothing's hurting badly yet, so we're just packing up and gonna check in.
This was like 2 weeks early. The doctor gave us assurances there was no chance she was gonna go into labor. I just hope she waits for me. Matt and I are racing to the airport. We had to cancel all of our important venture capitalist meetings. I flew to Texas, we had the baby, everything was perfect. Here's a great little video I made about going to have the baby. But the deal didn't close. And Candace and I were in the hospital with Francine when she was born for 5 days. And I never left the hospital for those 5 days, I stayed with her. But I commandeered the nurse's break room, which was right next to Candace's hospital room. And I would literally spend every moment that Candace was asleep in that nurse's room with this notepad on my phone like this, trying to make the deal happen. And in the end, Francine was perfectly healthy and we left the hospital with our lovely, new, beautiful, healthy baby girl. And in the end, Matt and I closed on over $2 million in funding for Beam. First question is from Garrett. What will you do when YouTube dies? I'll improvise. It was like when silent films died, there were talkies. When talkies died, there was television. Television turned into cable. Cable turned into like Netflix. The distribution medium, the genres will always shift. And creators, the people who are making the content, will always shift with it. Somewhat ironically, my HBO show was literally exactly like this vlog. And it failed miserably on television, but does really well on YouTube. All right, Cass asks, how do you choose the title for your vlogs? That's simple. I come up with the most clickbait-like title I can possibly come up with, so I just want you guys to click on it. And then if you think it's boring, just stop watching. But I try to come up with the most enticing titles possible, even if they're completely inaccurate. Sorry about that. I'm gonna turn this way. William asks, what do you dislike most about internet videos? Because you get rewarded for the more views you have online, there's a real opportunity to sort of juke the system by putting out exploitive content that you know people are gonna click on. But I don't think that's unique to internet videos. If you look at television, there are TV shows like TMZ, which is both negative and exploitive by definition, but people watch that. I think it's human nature to always turn your head and look at a car accident, but that doesn't mean a car accident's a good thing, just because people want to look at it. Jack asks, do you ever get self-conscious posting videos? No. Joe asks, what's your opinion on doing YouTube for money? Here's the thing, because YouTube is so accessible, I think there's this misconception that it's easier to succeed on YouTube than it is to succeed in mainstream media. That is not true. If anything, it's harder on YouTube. You're competing with a billion other creators. It's really hard to stand out. It's really hard to carve your place, and it's especially hard to make money. Say you like float to the top. Say you're doing better than everyone else. Say you're garnering something like 100,000 views a day. 100,000 views a day will make you, let me do some math, will make you about $30,000 a year, which is roughly the same as you'd make getting a job that's just above minimum wage. If you succeed on YouTube to the degree of 100,000 views a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you'll probably make about as much money as I did when I was washing dishes and doing prep cook work. So yes, you can make money on YouTube. It's not easy. It is an incredibly, incredibly difficult thing to do, that of all the creators on YouTube, there's just a couple at the top that have actually been able to make enough money to make a life for themselves. This is a nice dovetail from my previous question. What advice would you give someone thinking about starting a daily vlog? One piece of advice, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Those reasons can pretty much be anything but, I want to be famous, I want to be rich. Maybe you want to have a documentation of your life. Maybe you're compelled to share your own ideas or perspectives. Maybe you want to get better at filmmaking, and doing something every day will get you to that place. Those are all great reasons. Wanting to be like the next YouTube superstar, I think is a really bad reason. I'm gonna turn around again because all I can hear is this like terrible music. Julia asks, why did you start movie making? Well, Julia, I started making movies when I was literally living in a trailer park. I was 19 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, something like that. I had some free time, so I'd spend all of my days at home watching my baby son. When I first edited video on like a crappy old iMac computer, I was just so excited that all of my ideas in my head, I could actually turn into something, and that something was a little video. And honestly, like that seed of an idea, that really primitive early motivation, is the exact reason why I create movies now. Okay, Scott Talbot asks, are there any films you've made specifically for your family? Yeah, when my dad got cancer like 10 years ago, I made a movie for him about us kids, his kids, and I used the metaphor, the analogy of like, he was a B-52 bomber and we were little atomic bombs that he dropped on the world. That was a really personal film that I made just for my dad. Alyssa asks, how do you think Francine will react to watching your vlogs when she's older? I don't know, but all of the footage of me from when I was a baby is like around a holiday or a birthday or like opening a present or some sort of event. And what I would love is to see what I was like when I was a baby or when I was a kid, just like living my normal life. So if I were Francine, I would love it, but who knows? Okay. Garrett asks, another kid? If having kids didn't require the whole pregnancy thing, I would have like 50 of them. But I honestly don't know if my marriage to Candace could survive another pregnancy. So the answer to the question about whether or not I'm gonna have more kids is a big fat question mark. Ben Porter, who was the most inspirational member of your family to me? My Nana. She died a couple years ago, but my grandmother was my hero. I made a movie about her, I'll link it here. But she was a tap dancer. She entertained the troops during World War II. She found her passion in life to dance, and she did it literally until the day before she died when she was 92. She is just like, to me, she embodies everything that I've ever sought after in life, which is finding what makes you happy and literally doing it every single day. Who's Owen's real mother? What, like he has a fake mother? Owen's real mother is Robin. She's with Owen right now in Arizona looking at colleges. Alberto, does it damage you to spend so much time working far from your family? I think what you're asking is like, is it bad for the family that I work so much? I don't know. It's a trade-off in life. For me, probably because I was so poor when I had Owen, providing for my family is my #1 priority. which means that like spending time with my family comes second to my ability to provide for them. And what that means is I'd rather spend less time with them and know that they have a safe home and all their needs are fulfilled than it does for me to be with them all day long, but us to struggle and me to not, you know, have the confidence to know that I'm gonna be able to put a roof over their head and pay for food. And I know those sound like extremes because I live a very comfortable life and I still work really hard, but it's like a concern and a fear I can't shake. Because when you know what it means to be hungry and when you know what it means to not be able to provide for your kids, it pushes you really hard to want to make sure that they're safe their whole lives. Douglas asks, what's the craziest experience you've had with Candace around the world? Okay, there are a whole bunch. One time I was doing like a big art show in Paris and I stayed in this absurdly expensive hotel that Sony paid for because they sponsored the event. And the hotel was so dim, like you literally couldn't see your way around the hotel. It's called the Hotel Cost, look it up. And one night we came back and she was really pissed off about how dark it was in the hotel. And she took a towel and she smashed out every light bulb in the elevator and then in the hallway of the hotel. So it was literally pitch black. She was a total troublemaker when she was younger. I don't know if that's the craziest, but that's like the only one I can think of. All right. First question is from you, Casey Newton. What is the least terrible domestic airline? I don't know, it's either Virgin or JetBlue are the least terrible. They're all terrible. JetBlue or Virgin's probably the least terrible. Rodrigo asks, what do you like the most and what do you hate the most about traveling? What I hate the most is the indignity that is airport security, forcing people to take off their clothes and their shoes and stand there like this and be patted down. That's the worst part. The best part of travel is the unknown. As ubiquitous and accessible as information is in this day and age, to actually experience something truly new, and travel affords that in a way that nothing else does. This question dovetails nicely into my last answer. Why does traveling feel so good? It feels so good because of that like surprise and delight. You don't know what you're getting yourself into, so it's a surprise. And then it's almost always amazing, so you're delighted with that experience. And those two sensations are just like, are magic. Best travel companion, without question, Owen, my son. Because he's like tough, he's down for anything, he's not afraid of real adventure, and he doesn't complain. And on top of all that, he's my kid, so I'm always in charge, and it's never like a democracy, like what do we want to do? It's a dictatorship, dad makes the decisions. Parenthetically, the very worst travel companion is my wife, Candace. What tips can you give someone who wants to travel more? Traveling by land is extremely underrated. Trains, driving, motorcycles, bicycles, really incredible. Travel doesn't always mean getting on an airplane and flying to another continent. Did you ever have much success upgrading airline seats before you had premium status? I made a movie a little while ago about how to get free business class, and it's all about status. The only way to get status is to fly a lot. Otherwise, upgrades just don't exist unless you have that status, which means you fly a lot. Josh Crocker, any favorite travel vloggers? Yes, Fun for Louie, great. Ben Brown, probably my favorite. I'll link both of them below. Incredible travel vloggers. Both those guys are always running around the world, and they share it in a way that is just like intimate and real. It's like you're traveling with a friend when you watch their vlogs. I'll link them below. Claudia asks, what's the longest flight you've ever been on, non-stop? The longest flight in the world, which is from New York City to Singapore or New York City to Hong Kong. I can't remember. I was with my good friend Oscar Boyson, and it was a blast. I was like sad when we landed. How does flying not scare you? There's so many good things to be scared of in this world, but air travel? How often do you get told to stop skateboarding in the airport? I don't know, maybe like half the time. And the thing about skateboarding or breaking any rules in the airport is the minute you're told not to, you just stop. And you say, I'm sorry, you pick up the skateboard and you go on your way. Never pick a fight in the airport. There's just too much tension in there already. Most interesting person you sat next to in first class? I sat next to Wiz Khalifa once. He was awesome. I think he might have been stoned. Do you have any crazy travel stories that you haven't shared? Yes, I do. Okay, good question. This will be the last question. Can you tell us about your scariest flight ever? Yes. This was at the height of the war, like 2010, and let me zoom in for dramatic effect here. And the plane itself had no markings on the outside. It was just a blank white plane. And what was particularly scary was, in order for us to land in the airport in Bagram Air Force Base, we first flew over the air base like this, and then we flew in a circle around like that, and then landed. And the reason why we did that is because if you come in like this, they would shoot you down as you got close to the ground. So we had to get above it and then circle down. And then the minute we landed, a US soldier boarded the plane with a gun, and he said, "Give me your passports, and when you get out of the plane, make sure we can see your hands and your hats are off." I don't know why that detail scared the crap out of me. There were definitely guns on us because they didn't know who we were at that point in time. That is by far the scariest airplane experience of my travel career. Okay. All right. Questions. Any dollar pizza alternatives? Yes, and I want to be really clear on this. Dollar pizza is terrible. I do not recommend you come to New York City and try dollar pizza. There are some amazing pizza places in this town. My favorite slice in the city is called Joe's Pizza. It's in the West Village. It's like $2.75 for a slice of pizza. It's amazing. Don't do dollar pizza. That place is toxic. What's your favorite US city outside of New York City? I love Los Angeles. How do you overcome the fear of doing what you like? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, but taking chances in your career or taking chances in life is always scary. And typically if it's something you really like, something you're passionate about, it requires taking a chance to pursue that. What I always ask myself, the question I always push up against is, what is the alternative? Like if I don't do what I love, if I don't pursue this thing that I want to pursue, what is the alternative? I do something that I don't like because I'm supposed to. Fear is real. Fear is something you will always have to confront. But what's on the other side of fear is always something that's worth it. Casey, I would love to share with you my app idea. Okay. Now I'm going to try not to sound like a total asshole when I answer this, but I feel like this relationship is about truth, and I have to tell you how I honestly feel when people, not just this person, but anyone says, I have an app idea I'd love to talk to you about. I don't want to hear your idea. Ideas, especially in technology and in filmmaking, ideas are the easiest part. In technology in particular, you can look at an app and say, an app should do this, that's a great idea. But realizing that is unbelievably hard. The seed that is the idea, it very seldom ends up manifesting into what the final version of that app looks like. What I mean by that is like, when Twitter was started, it was a way to let your friends know when you're at a rave or a concert. Like that's what Twitter was. That was their intention behind Twitter. They had like a little idea that wasn't even a great idea. But years and years of work and hundreds and now thousands and tens of thousands of employees and millions of users turn it into something much, much, much greater. And that's the hard part. The idea is the easy part. If you want to make something, make it and show it to me. I'd love to see it, but I'm not interested in the idea. Can you make your vlogs longer? No. When I watch a movie that's too short, but I really like, I'm always like, that was great, I wish there was more. And when I see a movie that I really love, like Trainwreck I saw this weekend, it was great, but it was like 20 minutes too long. So I left thinking not that was a great movie, I just left thinking that was too long. So I'd always rather leave the viewer, I'd always rather be left as the viewer wishing for more than I would being left with like, that was too much. Plus, I just don't have time, like that's crazy. It takes me like half the day to make 6 minutes of interesting content. I wouldn't know how to do 20. Amanda asks, do you have any advice for high school? Now, I only went to a little bit of high school, but I do have some advice, and that's this. When you're in high school, it feels like that is the entire world, like that is your whole universe. And when you grow up and you get old like me, you realize it's not. Like high school is just a little blip in this huge thing that you call life. Even in this huge thing that you call education, high school is only this tiny little piece of that. So hang in there, work really hard, and know that high school is just, it's a moment in your life. Do you still have the first thing that you built in your office? That's a great question, and yes, I do. Okay, the very first thing that I built in this studio was this, my overhead shooting rig. This is what I use to like film all of my animations, and the monitor's here, the camera goes here, it shoots straight down. And the reason why this surface here is so messed up is because This was the actual piece of wood that the original shooting table was made on. It's never been changed for the last 13 years. I don't think I'll ever change it. It's too awesome. Raj, in a tense situation, would you run away or fight? And why? Okay, generally my feeling about violence is to avoid it at all costs. So always run away, except in one of three situations. The first is if you have to defend yourself. Like if it's you or them, make sure it's always them. Number two is if you have to defend someone who can't defend themselves, like a kid or a girl or something, then you fight. And three, and this one's a little bit more controversial, to defend the honor of a woman. Meaning if someone is humiliating or saying things about a girl and she can't defend herself, I believe force is necessary to end that. But as a rule, avoid fights at all costs, avoid violence at all costs. The last time I got into a fight was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's kind of a funny story. Candace and I were like having an argument on Broadway in the middle of New York City. And this somewhat imposing figure came over to us, interrupted our fight, and was like trying to sell us candy. It's like a scam that guys do in New York City. And we said no, and like he wouldn't back off. And eventually he walked away and like turned to Candace and he was like, and f you, bitch. And like, you just can't talk to a woman like that. Then things got violent. Next question. Ooh, this is a good one. I like this a lot. Maddie asks, what's the least favorite movie you've ever made? It's actually, hold on, Maddie. Okay, I'm just covering up the name of the musician, but see how it says biggest mistake ever? That was a music video my brother Van and I directed in 2004. It just wasn't right. We should have said no. But we were dead broke, and it was the first like real opportunity to do something for real, like it was a music video. So we did it. It came out terribly. No one was happy, and to this day, it certainly has been like biggest mistake ever. And from that mistake, I learned so much about when you say yes and when you say no to gigs that involve money. Okay, awesome question from Alex. If you had a time machine, would you go back in life and do something differently? Yes. If I had a time machine, I would go back and be born in the year 1899. That means I could fight in World War I, I could fight in World War II, and then I could grow up and have my adult years go through from like 1940 to 1980, like the height of like American engineering when like it was really America was at its finest. And then die in the early 80s, just before the internet was born. Alberto, how have the daily vlogs impacted your channel? Tremendously. Growth is off the charts, like so many new viewers, so many new people coming to the channel, all really exciting stuff. And I still have like my canon of old movies, like the first 100 movies I made were not vlogs. So the channel, the dynamic of it has really changed, but for me it's like this library of all the work I've made since I stopped working with my brother in 2010. Okay. Considering your passion for hard work, is retirement in the cards? There are two things that I hope I never have to deal with in life. One is being sick. That's my ultimate fear. And then two is not being able to work. So retirement is like the sum of all fears for me. I hope I never have to retire. I hope I die working. I'll end the Q&A on this question with like a little story. So my muse, like my idol, my hero in life is my grandmother. And my Nana, she died a couple years ago. When she was 13 years old, maybe she was younger. When she was 13 years old, she learned how to tap dance. And that was like her passion, her dream, like the thing that inspired her more than anything in the world was tap dancing. She didn't stop tap dancing for the next 80 years. She literally tapped every single day. She moved out of New York City to Connecticut. She started a tap school in the 1950s. She had a tap studio in her home that she like taught children how to tap dance in. She did a recital every year where she would do a tap show for hundreds of people. And she did that literally until the day before she died. On a Friday, she had tap class where she had 20 students in her class and she was on her feet, tap, tap, tapping away. And then the next day she went to the hospital and then she died. That, like if I could sign a contract and get that deal, that's what I want out of life. I want to pursue my passion and work until the very end. I never want to retire. I made a movie about my Nana that tells this story in more depth. I'll link it below, and then I'll put like a link thing here. You should watch that movie. She might be the most like inspirational human being I've ever met. It might make you cry. Casey, what's the worst purchase you've ever made and why? This thing, because I will break a hip on it. Okay. Dalton wants to know, is your app going to be free? Of course it is. Carlos asks, what makes you proud of yourself? Okay, that's a weird way to phrase it, but how I have confidence in who I am and the decisions I make is that I have this moral compass in life, and it is like, it is a summation or an amalgam of everything that I believe in, and everything that I think is right and fair and just. And every decision that I make, personal, private, business, every decision that I make is made through the looking glass, through the perspective of my moral compass, of what I believe is right and what I believe is wrong. And if it's wrong, I don't make that decision. I only make decisions that I believe in. In the aggregate of that, you do that over enough time, and it gives you a sense of pride. It gives you a sense of confidence in what you've done in life. Eli wants to know, how has vlogging helped you as a filmmaker? Anyone that works in any creative field knows that when there's no impetus to create, it's very hard to make something. Meaning, like, without a deadline, it's hard to actually finish. Like that awesome platitude that I love to preach, without a goal, you can't score. So how vlogging has helped me as a filmmaker, it's forced me to make a new movie every day. And by doing that, my skills have improved, my editing has improved, my confidence in my editing has improved. Everything's been moved forward because of this vlog, because of this like self-imposed daily deadline. What is the hardest thing to learn how to do or master when you start filmmaking? How to tell a story. It's also the only thing that matters when you're making a movie, is can you or can you not tell a story? If you can tell a great story, people will forgive everything. Bad cinematography, bad sound, bad everything. People will forgive that if the story's great. Adversely, if the story's weak or the story's not there, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. It doesn't matter how much money you spent on the fanciest kit, no one gives a shit. Story is king. Everything else is slave to story. Wooter wants to know, do you ever critique your own work? You know, honestly, after I post these things, I never watch them, so I don't know. I try to look forward. Do you regret dropping out of high school? That's a tough one. Regret, no. I dropped out of high school because I had no other option. I had to get a job, I had to work, I had to make a living to support my child. There were no other options. I couldn't move in with my parents didn't have any money. I literally had nowhere else to turn, so I had to become an adult right then and there. So regret is like a not a fair classification of it. I would have loved to have continued my education, but I had no other choice. Every step, every turn, every inflection point in my life has made me who I am today. And I'm very happy, I live a very happy life, so it's hard for me to look back and regret any decisions. So do I regret it? No. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not. Stay in school, don't do drugs. Carlos, what's the meaning of life? Carlos, existentialism is a very dangerous thing. Ignore it, get back to work. Do you ever get camera shy? No. Ethan, can you speak other languages? Ah, bien sûr, je parle français très bien. Just kidding, no. Why do you have a gay flag on your desk? Well, I have this pride flag as a way of saying hello and welcome to my LGBT viewers. Hello and welcome. Okay, I think I'm going to end today's Q&A there. Just ducking out of the office now. I had to leave the little Segway thing behind. My ankles were starting to hurt. I'm on skateboard.